Shabbat Shalom. My name is Rabbi Julie Carroll. It's a privilege to share the bima this evening with our senior clergy, Rabbi Ben Spratt and Cantor Shayna Delow. J. David, thank you for lifting our worship. J. David Williams, our music director. Ford is beaming us out to the world. We greet all of you who are watching us wherever you are. And of course, we're so grateful to you who are with us in person in the sanctuary this evening. I want to invite everybody to just take in a deep August breath. And exhale. And as you do that exhale, I just invite you to release any burden, any stress, any pressure that you may have felt weighing you down as you walked into this space. Anything that may get in the way of you finding shalom, peace, nachot, comfort. I love Shabbat in August. Earlier this week, I took a long drive. And instead of listening to my typical music, I decided I would listen to a podcast, see if I could learn something. And there are too many podcasts. I'm just going to assert that as fact. And so the only one I ever listened to is This American Life. And so I stumbled upon episode 692, which was called The Show of Delights. And it was aired on January 31st, 2020, a world ago. And in it, we meet the poet and the professor, Ross Gay, who teaches at Indiana University. For a year, Professor Gay decided that he was going to track all the things that brought him delight, all the things that tickled him. And he said he was going to write them down as little essayettes. And then, of course, because he's a professor and a poet, at the end of this year of writing an entire narrative of his life anchored in things that brought him joy, he published a book, The Book of Delights. And he shared in the podcast a vignette that I will never unsee, which is that right before he was going to fly home to Indiana, a friend gifted him a tomato seedling in a pot, and then laughed because he realized that this gift had to make it now home through the airport. And so Professor Gay decided that he was going to travel with this tomato plant, but something about packing it under the plane, he said, felt naughty, and so he was going to put it in his carry-on luggage. So he put it in his bag and then passed it through the security check, and the TSA agent obviously rerouted it from the conveyor belt and opened up the bag and said, "I don't know how to check this, man. Have a nice day." And so he realized as he took the plant, as the TSA agent took the plant out of the bag, that one of its stems, it had four, which Professor Gay was already starting to think of as its arms, because it was already kind of anthropomorphizing into something more than a tomato, that one of its four arms was broken. And so he decided that he was actually going to carry it in his arm all the way home to Indiana. And people looked at him like he was carrying a baby. What a nice tomato! Oh, isn't that cute? The flight attendant on the plane, he said, no fewer than 5 times, checked in on the tomato, but she called it my tomato. How's my tomato? You didn't lose my tomato, did you? She even offered him extra room in the exit seating row so that he and his tomato wouldn't be too cramped on the flight. And in my favorite memory from this experience of commuting with Tomato, he says that when the plane landed and it had that intense moment of turbulence, like any parent short stopping in a car, he put his arm across the Tomato to make sure that it was okay and had a safe landing. It is such a gift to be invited to think about recording time through delight, through the things that bring us joy, as opposed to those heavier things that often take up a lot of space in our minds and hearts. And so this Shabbat evening, and for many Shabbatot after this, we're going to invite you to be thinking about the things that give you joy. And we're also going to be thinking about how incorporating a rhythm of noticing and holding our joy and delight can maybe make our lives a little bit more colorful, a little bit more joyous, and help extend that Shabbat feeling that we have now into the rest of our week. We're going to continue with Lachuna Ranana on page 12. Oh, sorry. We're not going to continue. I'm so overjoyed that I forgot about candle lighting. We're going to invite, because we're thinking about delight, we're going to be inviting Henry Siegel forward to kindle the lights of Shabbat, which we're going to do together on page 2. Sorry about that. So lost in tomato commuting that I'm missing my moment. Yes, page 2, also on the wall.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav b'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Henry. And now to page 12, Lachuna Ranana.
To God, the maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear our song. L'chonei ranina, yai lai 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 lai, l'Adonai, yai 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 lai lai.
continue with Lechado D on page 20, welcoming in the spirit of Shabbat, verses 1 to 5. We will rise and face the door before the final verse. But for now, we remain seated, page 20.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor haberacha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh v'machshava tehila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Hitoreri, toreri, ki va'orech komi ori. Uri, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha uv'sohola. Toch emunei am segula, Boi chala, Boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela.
We remain standing as we are able for the call to prayer, page 28.
Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. Yai, 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 lai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, lai, lai. Yai, 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 lai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, yai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, lai.
The Shema is page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. ידיך, בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך, ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Earlier this week, there was a Erev Shabbat gathering in Midtown at the Hudson Theater, where many of the people in this room, and I'm sure many more that I didn't even know, watched Just for Us on Broadway, the show by Alex Edelman, which was hilarious. I purchased through Congregation Erev Shabbat 19 tickets. First I did 12, those sold out in a minute, then I got 6 more, those sold out. So many of our congregants reached out and said, we're gonna go on August 2nd so that we can all see this together. And there were at least 50 people in the theater that I knew. It was high holidays, but in August in Midtown. The show is about the combustion of whiteness and anti-Semitism in Judaism, and if you haven't seen it yet, I totally recommend it. But I want to share with you a moment that I'm treasuring from that show, which is that Alex Edelman is painting the picture of an unlikely marriage ceremony between him and a bigot. And at the end of it, he mimes stomping and smooching. But in the show, he's always very cognizant of doing anything that a non-Jewish person might not be aware of. So he says, if you don't know, in a Jewish wedding, we always stomp a glass right before the wedding ends. What does the glass represent? Happiness. And the entire theater erupted in laughter. That's the whole breaking of the glass, is you're getting married, and so you're gonna smash your happiness forever. Everybody was freaking out. There were some jokes that I think not everybody found funny, but that joke everybody found funny. And if I hadn't 2 days earlier listened to a podcast about delight, then I don't think I would have held on to that harmony of so many hundreds of people, Jewish and not, laughing together at this joke in the middle of New York City in this incredibly Jewish space together. But because of what Professor Gay wrote and invited me into, I just languished a little bit longer in that joy. And I felt the glow of not only sharing it with so many of you who are here and so many of our congregants who are there, but just that New York moment of a great joke on a great summer night in New York City. In this week's Torah portion, Ekev, the main thrust of the Parsha is about all the things that the Israelites are going to need to do to earn God's covenantal blessings. And 3 times in this week's Torah portion, we are reminded that one of the main things we have to do is remember the marvels that God performed for us when we were fleeing slavery in Egypt. And I want to share with you the language from the Torah portion. In Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 19, we read, Hamasot hagedolot asher ra'u einecha, the wondrous acts that you saw with your own eyes. In Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 21, we read, Et hagedolot ve'et hanoraot ha'ela asher ra'u einecha, those marvelous, awesome deeds that you saw with your own eyes. And again in Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 8, Ki einechem haraot et kol ma'aseh Adonai hagadol, that you saw with your own eyes the marvelous deeds that Adonai performed. What's so interesting about the way that this is phrased is that while the object of our memory is these wondrous deeds, the subject of the remembering is us. We witnessed it with our own eyes. These marvels are not just things we're being asked to believe in as a show of faith, but the ancestors to whom Moses is speaking at this moment in the Torah portion, they saw them. And what the Torah portion is communicating to us is that witnessing something marvelous, witnessing something beautiful, something that gives you joy, something that liberates you, it confers upon you an obligation to remember it, to repeat it, to invoke it, but also to share it. That's the idea. You saw it with your own eyes. Don't forget it. Hold on to it. And so Judaism is actually asking us to metabolize our joy, not just to let it be something that floats by us, but just like we drink wine and we eat challah on Shabbat, we take something into our bodies and we hope that it helps us transition out of our mundane, regular time into that holy space. How can we allow our joy to do that for us too? How can we better and more purposefully and intentionally take that witnessing of delight, of all of those evanescent moments that bring wonder to our lives, and how can we grasp them a little bit more intentionally and allow the light that they bring us to really bring more of a glow to our lives and the people that we share our lives with? So we're about to sing Mi Chamocha, the song of the sea that invokes that very miracle that Moses was referring to in the Torah portion. And as we sing it, I'm just going to invite you to hold in your hearts just something that brought you joy this week. And maybe, I suspect Rabbi Spratt later in the service will invite you maybe to introduce yourself to a neighbor. And if you do that, maybe you'll share with them something that brought light and joy into your life this week. We continue with Mi Chamocha on page 40.
ונאמר כי בדרני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Sukkot Shalom, Sukkot Shalom, Aleinu, Aleinu. As I lay me down, may I feel peace all around, sheltered beneath your wings. May I feel safe and protected until a new day begins. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'amideinu, shomreinu l'chaim, l'chaim. Sukkot Shalom, Sukkot Shalom, Sukkot Shalom, Aleinu, Aleinu, Aleinu.
We think now of those who we would like to feel enveloped in that Sukkot Shalom, in that sukkah of peace, those who are struggling in mind, body, and spirit. We raise our voices praying that they will know that God is with them, that they are not alone, that this community is praying for their strength and for their wholeness. This week we're thinking of Sandy Sarabin, Tracy Lustig, Cassie Lustig, Paulette Kohan, Patricia Horn, Stephen Schwinder, Perry Soskin, Mark Miller, Ellen Kirshner, Paul Biddleman, Tom Lee, Ricky Desson, Debbie Plotz-Pierce, Ari Guinor, Stephen Lappin, Lane Washer, Ruth Stober, David Perman, Elaine Herrick, Stanley Reifer, Judy Garber, Sandra K. Wasserman, Leonard Soffer, Mary Cosgrove, Robin Sabbath. Are there additional people you'd like to pray for this Shabbat? Naomi. Thank you, Judy. We continue with Misha Berach, our prayers for healing, in the middle of page 253.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mekor abracha lamotenu.
We invite you to rise as you are able as we turn to the Amidah prayers beginning on page 46.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei Hakol V'zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imachot U'mevii Geula Livnei V'neihem L'man Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Hakol Atah Rav Le'oshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim U'matir Asurim U'mekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bal Gevurot U'midol Melach Melech Memit U'mechayeh U'matzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei hakol Atah kadosh Shemcha kadosh U'kadoshim b'chol yom yalalu chasela Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Shalom Rav is page 60.
Make of us a house for all people. Gather us in hope for all people. Surround us in peace for all people, in wholeness and in love. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Shalom, Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה b'shlomecha, b'shlomecha. Make of us a house for all people. Gather us in hope for all people. Surround us in peace for all people, in wholeness and in love. Make of us a house for all people. Gather us in hope for all people. Surround us in peace for all people, in wholeness and in love. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
We invite you into personal reflection.
We're focusing on bringing in delight and taking it into our hearts wherever we find it, which doesn't mean that we don't understand that the world outside is on fire in many ways. And so, as the Tree of Life Synagogue is on our minds this night, I'm choosing to focus on the healing that we hope for the families that are still affected every day and for our world community. Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there. I am but a voice, just a cry in the air, but I sing nonetheless. this great divide, but I sing nonetheless with love on our side. Oh, sweet souls who feel broken now, we'll heal together somewhere, somehow. Time and again we have been let down, but we sing nonetheless, still whole and proud. Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there.
Lessons on the way to prison. In 1749, Jean-Jacques Rousseau decided to go and visit his best friend and fellow philosopher, Denis Diderot. And Denis and Rousseau had a long-standing conversation that they were going to address this one day in the midst of prison. Rousseau decided that he was going to present to his dear friend a query that they had come at from many different directions, but all effectively to lift up the question, has the Enlightenment, has all the progress of science and art done more to help our world or to hurt it? Unfortunately, his friend was imprisoned far outside Paris in the rural foothills miles away, and Rousseau decided that he was going to walk and journey reflecting on the question along the way. As legend has it, as he would move farther out of Paris, the buildings got smaller. He noticed the aroma in the air became fresher. He noticed that suddenly green started to bloom around him. And suddenly he stopped and realized that the answer to his question was found right before his eyes. That the farther he got from the laboratories and the galleries, the more beauty and the more peace that he found in front of him. And so Rousseau would reflect that it was that moment in the outskirts of Paris on the way to prison that he had the epiphany and romanticism began. This lens in a world verdant with beauty and delight would inspire the likes of Shelley and Wordsworth, even the voyages of James Cook and Charles Darwin. And years later, the great Ralph Waldo Emerson would share his own epiphany, his own moment of delight. And he crafted an essay after walking across a common in Concord, Massachusetts. These are his words. In the woods, we return to reason and faith. There I feel that nothing can befall me in life, no disgrace, no calamity, which nature cannot repair. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing, and yet I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God. I am the lover of uncontained and immortal beauty. The greatest delight which the fields and woods minister is the suggestion of an occult relation between the human and the vegetable. I am not alone and unacknowledged. They all nod to me, and I to them. The waving of the boughs in the storm is new to me and old. It takes me by surprise and yet is not unknown. Its effect is like that of a higher thought or a better emotion coming over me, when I deem I was thinking justly or doing right. In our Torah portion this week, in addition to seeing the delights and the wonders that are right before our eyes, again and again we are given the emphasis that the great vision of promise, the great vision of joy and blessing in our world is found in the land. For the eternal your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with streams and sprigs and fountains issuing from plain and hill, a land of wheat and barley, of vines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey, a land where you may eat food without stint, where you will lack nothing, a land of copper and iron. It is and will be a good land. In the course of just 3 short verses, our Torah text repeats the word eretz, land, 7 times. As you can imagine, that creates a veritable cornucopia of delight for rabbinic commentators. Sforno lifts up and mentions that each notion of this word is tagged to a different essence of the world, and he believes captures the 7 different landscapes found across the globe. And throughout the Torah portion, the vision of this promised land of Zion is called Ha'eretz HaTovah, the good land. Again and again, the horizon point for the Israelites long ago and echoing forward in our tradition is embodied by the land, by a nature flowing with abundance and blessing, with a weaving of every landscape and every climate imaginable. Zion then is meant to embody and capture the entire world in this lens. And like the Romantics, God defines blessing as access to such wild, wondrous beauty. But those 3 verses of noticing and naming the blessings of the land, of the world, end with an obligatory human response. Achalta, v'sevachta, uberachta. And you will eat, and when you are sated, and then you will bless. These 3 words form the rabbinic basis for our tradition, both to bless before we eat and also to bless after we eat. That in the repetitions of the land, we are instructed that we should then go and eat until we are satisfied, and in our satisfaction feel overwhelmed with blessing. And then we continue in our Torah text to learn that the only way that we will actually come to blessing in our life is by being able to enter the land and appreciate its bounty. And so begins a reciprocal relationship that is evoked from our biblical text forward. When we have eaten and been sated, we should offer blessing for the goodness of the land and the blessing of our world in all its different facets. And in our delight, we are inspired to bless. And in our blessing, we raise attention to a world. And so perhaps this is some of the ancient wisdom we need to relearn again and again and again. When we are wearied by headlines, weighed down by concrete heat or the press of technology, perhaps it begins with a small taste of beauty. Whether it may be a block away in the Central Park, Pinetown, or in the heights of the Golan Mountains. Whether it's on the beach or we have traveled to the vineyard. For those of us in search of the promised land, perhaps its vision is already right before us. And for those of us who enter the Shabbat who feel maybe just a bit of a sense of helplessness. Perhaps change begins with the summer ice cream stand, or the bite of watermelon that sends sweetness cascading down our chin. Perhaps it begins in the small moments, where we may eat enough that we may find delight, and in our delight, raise our eyes to see that right here there is beauty, that right here there is wonder. And with that beauty and with that wonder comes obligation, a responsibility to see that as we have been brought to the place of blessing, in our utterance of blessing comes the responsibility to create it for others. May that goodness be our responsibility to shape, whether it be the lessons on the way to prison, or perhaps simply the lessons walking along the sidewalks of New York. May we see a God that reminds us that we are part and particle, and that in the woods, in the wilderness, right before our eyes, in the bite, in the taste, in the flavor, is the very beginning of being the bearers of blessing. We invite the community to rise as you're able, as the ark is open for Aleinu, page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kecho hamonam, v'anachnu משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
As we turn now to the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294, we raise in this space the names of those that we have loved and lost along the way. And in speaking name, in rising, we offer homage to those who have been a beacon in our lives and knowing that their legacy continues to help us, guide us towards our future. If you hear the name of a loved one you're remembering, or if you offer the name of a loved one you're remembering, we invite you to rise as you're able and remain standing. We also have the custom for those who wish at Rosh Shalom to come to the front and to take a stone and place it onto slate as a tangible sign of that memory and lasting connection. This Shabbat, our community mourns the recent losses of Joseph Abada, Lois Levitt, Bernard Rosen, Jane Wisen, and Phyllis Rachbach. If there are others in the period of Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning, we invite you to rise as you're able and offer the names. Those in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning. Those within the first year of mourning. Maggie. Thank you. Joyce. Yes. We remember the Yortzites, the anniversaries of death, of Charles Anderson, Lillian Aronson, Baby Bernat, Philip Birnbaum, Anna Block, John Borchers, Edna Bornstein, Herbert Chase Sr., Paula Cherney, Doris Cohen, Janet DeGory, Judith Deutsch, Sidney Dicker, Sally Donheiser, Johanna Earl, Mara Farkas, Marvin Feldman, Selma Feldman, Abraham Felt, Archie Finkelstein, Joseph Finkelstein, David Fishman, Saul Friedman, Barry Garfinkel, Jonah Glucroft, Rabbi Manuel Gold, Morton Goldberg, Ben Goldman, Alvin Goldsmith, Sarah Gottbaum, Samuel Greenfield, Florence Greenhut, Paul Hahn, Dr. Jim Harrison, Lawrence Hirsch, Evelyn Hoffman, Irving Kabak, Joseph Kanarak, Florence Kanner, Daniel Katz, David Katz, Stanley Katz, Eugene Kay, Harry Kennison, Milton Kingson, Lawrence Kleiman, Peggy Koch, Henry Koval, Larry Leader, Fanny Leeds, Bertha Louie, William Lustig, Sylvia Mann, Irving Marshak, Julius Muller, Ida Miller, Vera Minnick, Blanche Morgenstern, Gabriel Muscana, Charles Newman, Kenneth Oltarsh, Joan Ossip, Milton Pellico, Julius Pincus, Charlotte Ray, Henry Renner, Muriel Rothman, Irma Santa Croce, Lawrence Schaffer, Ali Scheuer, Jane Schiffman, Rosalind Schlesinger, Herman Schnapp, Harold Schneider, Myron Siegel, Dr. Myron Silverstein, Frida Singer, Aaron Spiegel, Hallie Steiner, Herbert Thau, Joseph Umansky, Murray Wexler, Harold Weiss, Phyllis Winter, Hattie Wolf, and Tony Zacks. If there are others you're remembering this evening, we invite you to rise and offer the names. Zichronam Dibracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. As our custom at Rosh Shalom, we invite you to rise as we're able as one community for the words of the Mourner's Kaddish together on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye d'cho Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mavarach leolam u'lamei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran b'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim, Alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Useh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom. Alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Say shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen.
May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn here and comfort to all who are bereaved everywhere, as we say together, Amen. Just a few brief announcements for anyone who needs a little bit of a rest. This is a good moment for it. So, of course, our Shabbat worship continues tomorrow morning at 10:15, followed by a Torah study with Rabbi Carol. And here at Rosh Shalom, enduring reproductive rights has been one of our major advocacy efforts for decades now. On Monday, August 14th, we continue this at 7 p.m. Join us for a special program from the National Council of Jewish Women. Liz Zimmerman, community organizer for the Council's Jews for Repro New York campaign, offers us an important and informative program on advocacy, access, and rights issues relevant here to New York. This will be on Zoom, and we will have an opportunity actually for Q&A with Liz. And then we also have a fun game night planned for parents that are expecting and those who have recently become parents. Some of us that may seem hard to imagine, but for some of us, we can remember very much needing the sense of delight and joy. And so we are inviting all of those who are soon to be parents or recent parents, join us for happy hour games and light bites on Tuesday evening, August 15th at 7 p.m. This is a continuation of our ongoing efforts to broaden and deepen our connections in our Shalom Sprouts community. And believe it or not, the high holidays will be here in a flash. In fact, you've already started to receive emails about new offerings, our service schedule. I've already been getting lots of emails about 2 months ago about the schedule for high holidays, so I know some of you are very eager to know. Now it's online, ready for you to see exactly what will be offered and when. And we do want to make sure that everyone is aware that our deadline for submissions for our Roll of Remembrance is Tuesday, August 15th. We do want to make sure that everyone sees that, because for anyone wanting to lift up memory in the heart of our holidays, we want to make sure you have time to bring forward those names and reflections. At this time, especially in our summer weeks, we get to both welcome back regular folks who are here almost every week, and sometimes we get to see some new faces or some faces we don't always get to see. This is a wonderful moment for us to remind ourselves that community doesn't just happen by walking into a space. It happens through connection and the sparking of new connection. And so I'm going to invite everyone to find as much of a nimble body and spirit as you can. Find a face of somebody you do not yet know, or perhaps somebody you just haven't seen in a while. I'm going to invite you to move over to them, wish them a Shabbat Shalom, and as Rabbi Carol indicated, share a little delight in your life, something small or large. Pass that spark of blessing forward to the next person.
Delighted to be here.
Friedman, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Super delighted. I'm so delighted. Idea. Just the whole thing.
Let's do that.
So in one of the Rosh Hashanah customs that brings me joy is, especially during the summer, we like to invite up those we haven't seen in a while, or those who are walking the space for the first time, and that feels like a big ask. But for anyone who is willing, who is new to Rosh Hashanah or hasn't been in here in a while, I would love to invite you to join us for Kiddush. It doesn't require anything other than standing here and being close to us. We all showered today, and it does mean you get to have the first access to our challah as well, which is, I think, for many of us a great perk. Some of us who are new to our community may have traveled here with people who are more frequent in our community. You're welcome to bring them as well if it feels more comfortable. If you are not feeling like tonight is a night where you want to showcase that you are a new face, please at least stick around afterwards so our clergy and our community members can come and greet you. We want to make sure you feel the warmth of Rosh Hashanah, and we want to hear about your journey and hope it continues within these walls. Do we have any takers?
I see they're thinking about it.
Okay,
Madeline's coming.
there's...
She's coming.
All right. Brave souls, perhaps?
You're coming. Come on up. Yay, and the Farkases are coming too.
Madeline, thank you.
I love that. So brave.
And so we're going to invite the community. Wonderful. Yay. Thank you. Look at the bravery and courage. Can we just celebrate that for a moment?
It's very impressive.
Not all of us would step into a space that may not be our place of belonging and be willing to stand up in front of everyone, not knowing what they're getting themselves into. Thank you all. Yes. I want to invite everyone to please rise as you're able as we raise a cup of blessing for Kiddush on page 5.
Come close, come close.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo,
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'yava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron le'maaseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehillah lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta
hand on the challah, and we're going to take off the cover on the count of 3. Are you ready? Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, what a beautiful
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.